I want to empower you. You have the, you don't need my blessing, but however you want to feel, like feel that way, right? Like if you want to be mad, like I get it. I was on pins and needles yesterday. But at no point was I angry, right? I was a little scared. It was a
lot of disappointed by the end.
A lot of disappointment. Well, I was disappointed across the board because I don't think it had to get to yesterday. Right? I wish, like, if in hindsight's 2020, I wish I could have reversed some of the events
that got us to this point.
Yeah. I wish, like, upon the first knowing that this was a thing, like last week, we had yesterday's meeting last week.
Yeah.
And then maybe he doesn't visit College Station.
You've got time.
Yeah.
Because yesterday you're under the gun, right?
Well,
By the time the report comes out and you're scrambling, you have a finite amount of time.
And I don't agree with, like, that's why I think I just want to spark people to be individual free thinkers. Like, take collections of information, do with it what you will, be empowered to think freely, right? I don't subscribe to the, well, how could he walk it back? Like, once it was out, like, how could he walk it back? Because believe me, I think that was discussed. And I just simply asked the question, would you rather explain why you are staying
or why you're leaving?
Or why you are leaving?
Way easier explanation why you're staying.
So, like, that
doesn't make any sense to me. That's not a good reason.
And guess what? He could, like, that wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
That's a thing we make up so we have a talk. Like, it wouldn't have been an issue. Now, were there people disappointed yesterday at 9:30 that was even a thing?
An option?
Oh, 100%.
Sure. But you know who forgives? Those people.
Yeah.
Like,
was he going to have some explaining to do? Sure. But I think, like,
it's an easier explanation.
Because I think he just had to tell the truth.
Yeah. And I still think the easiest explanation is to tell the truth, but you're still not going to get, and I don't know that he cares, but there's certain a number of people that even if you give a truthful explanation now are not forgiving him.
Yeah.
Whereas before, if you're explaining why you stayed, a truthful explanation, you're good to go.
Right.
Like 99.9% of people, right?
I mean, like, do you need a national search firm when you have an available sitting president?
What do you mean?
Like, do you need a national search firm to find your university president when you have someone or somebody's right in your very own backyard? Like, let's say at UNMC, where you could find a president that you think would. So it's little things like that. Well, right? Like, that's easy to explain if that's part of the deal. But listen, I'm not, I always like to listen to other people's opinions so I can see, and I'm not mad. Like, you kind of see what's going on in our StreamYard, and people have lots of ideas. Warren has something that has been a major talking point, right? It's he wants another bullet point on his resume to pursue a commissioner or even higher job. He has already looked at some of them, like head of college football playoffs. Okay. I heard that a lot yesterday. Okay. Not discounting it. I'll tell you guys the same thing I told Warren in StreamYard. You're going to a situation in A&M which has its own unique challenges. Okay.
Not an easy job.
4 athletic directors in how many years? 11?
10, 11.
Okay. And it took Trev about 3 months worth of recon to step into that very same kind of turbulence at Nebraska. But it was his home institution. So
you're willing to take on more.
It made it a little bit more. Yeah. So let's say that's true. Let's say that supposition is true. He just wants to add to the resume. He wants to cuddle up closer to Sankey, right? Because I heard this a lot yesterday. It's a power play, man. He wants a bigger job. What do you, at what cost?
Yeah.
Like at what cost would you be willing to invite headaches?
This level of headache too. This is not small.
At a large level for the sake of advancement at 54 years of age.
At a place that he considers to be home.
Like,
right? Like, that's a factor, right? If he's at if he's the AD at Clemson right now, right, and has said all the same things, same person, right? Because he's got a house in Clemson. That's the only reason I even brought that up. That's why it was in my head.
South Carolina.
It's whatever. Yeah, it's somewhere in that neighborhood, right? So let's say he's the exact same person, exact same career. Everything's the same, except instead of taking over at University of Nebraska, he takes over at South Carolina, Clemson, wherever, right? And the exact same thing plays out. They're struggling. Let's say they fall off from Dabo. He has to hire a new head coach, whatever. Make the situations as similar as possible. And then he decides, yeah, I think I'd rather be in the SEC than the ACC. I think I'd rather cozy up to Greg Sankey.
If you're going to struggle, wouldn't you struggle closer to home for advancement?
Yes, that's my point, right?
Okay.
If it's Clemson, South Carolina, it makes sense if he goes somewhere else for advancement because, okay, yeah, Clemson might be mad at him, but who cares?
I just don't know. And I'm not saying I'm not saying there's not some validity in what Warren is saying. What I'm saying is, how much would you put up with, and for how long? Because an extra $2 million is for Trev, in my opinion, is not worth the potential headache. So what was the separator?
So here's where I think,
was it the vision?
So here's where I think the ambition and future jobs could have played into the situation, right? Is if there already is issues, and like you've had in the back of your mind, say maybe before you took
they just hired a coach.
Right. But I'm saying, like, before you took the Nebraska job, let's say he's at Omaha, whatever, or at some point in his life, he's kind of put out, maybe I'd like to be a commissioner of a conference, or maybe I'd like to be, there wasn't even a college football playoff commissioner at that time or whatever. But he's like, maybe I'd like to kind of run the championship. Maybe at some point in his life, he's put these things.
Yeah, I don't think he wants to be an AD forever.
Right. So maybe at some point, those have been career goals. And he gets to Nebraska and he kind of shuts those career goals off to the side a little bit because he's like, hey, this is a place I care about. I could see myself staying here. But then you start having issues with the guy that you really enjoy working for, Ted Carter. All of a sudden he's gone. You start having issues with vision of maybe interim president, maybe influential people outside of this university system.
Building projects, whatever.
Building projects that are going to cost $500 million that the board of regents that maybe didn't love your predecessor and you kind of feel some way about it. Like, if those things start to happen and you previously had already been like, yeah, maybe I don't want to be an AD forever, those things start to come back into your mind.
Yeah, in their totality.
Yes, right? Yeah. But they get brought back up because of the lack of vision, the lack of leadership, all of that. Jesse here, stay on the line. We will get to you after the break.
I think one thing we can all agree on too, actually.
Yeah.
Ridiculous PR blunder.
Horrible.
And the absolute worst timing.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
where anger creeps in.
For sure. And I want to dig deeper because I feel like anger is a secondary emotion. Like, what about this made us angry? Do we feel betrayed? Because I kind of feel like a lot of it feels like we feel betrayed. We'll get to that and more coming up next on Hurrdat Sports Radio.